What's up, everyone? So, today we are going to be reading for What About You Makes People Curious. So, this is probably going to be mostly focusing on how strangers feel about you, how first impressions come off about you, but we'll see what we get. Before I start reading for the piles, I just wanted to say two things. One, again, thank you guys so much for all of the incredibly sweet comments that you've been leaving. I'm really sorry that my responses feel so repetitive. I'm just really awkward. And I don't know what else to say other than thank you so very much. But please know that I read all the comments and I really appreciate them. I love hearing the stories. I love getting to know about how everything resonated with you guys, what you took from it. Like, I really, really appreciate it. So, just please don't take my repetitive responses as me not paying attention individually to each comment. I am reading every single comment and I am grateful for every single one. Secondly, I know that I've been doing mostly readings about stuff like this, like what about you makes people curious, what are your talents. If you would like more prediction based readings, please just let me know. I have a box of topic ideas that I pull from. That's how I decide on my topic for each reading. So if you ever have any requests that you wanted or anything like that, please don't be afraid to leave them. I really appreciate the ideas and I really like hearing what you guys have to say. Um, thank you for listening to all that. Getting back to the reading, again, we're going to be reading for What About You Makes People Curious. We're going to have 4 piles today. And so pile number 1 is going to be the two of Wands. I corrected it and then said what I was going to say anyway. The 2 of Clubs. Pile 1 with the 2 of Clubs. Pile 2 is going to be the King of Clubs. Pile 3, I'm horrible with the piles today. Pile 3 is going to be the 5 of Spades. And pile 4 is going to be the 3 of Hearts. And so for the collective, I've got the 4 of Spades. You guys come off as very, very cool, calm, cool, and collected. Regardless of whether or not you feel that way about yourself, people feel like you have yourself very much under control. Like nothing can rattle you, like nothing can shake you up. Very, very calm, cool, and collective. I dig it. I love it. Again, for pile 1, we've got the 2 of Clubs. For pile 2, we've got the King of Clubs. For pile 3, we've got the 5 of Spades. For pile 4, we've got the 3 of Hearts. So getting started with pile 1 and the 2 of Wands. Already what I'm getting is that you guys are very energetic. People gravitate to you kind of like a ball of sunshine. There's something very energizing about your energy. Very forward thinking too. If you're someone who shares your ideas, like if you would consider yourself to be a progressive thinker and you share the kind of ideas that you have, regardless of whether it's like creative or like even political or anything like that, trust that you pique people's interests with it. You are a very good spokesperson for the kinds of things that you like talking about and the kind of movements that you're involved with. You are very good at getting people interested in your ideas and in your thoughts. Very, very strong public speaker energy. I do get the sense that there are some of you who don't like things like public speaking. But trust that when you speak, people listen to you. People really enjoy hearing what you have to say. They really enjoy hearing your opinion on things. You're someone who has been proven to have a very nuanced view on things. You're someone who's been proven to be very correct in what you say. And because of your track record with being correct, regardless of whether your opinion is popular or not, you have a lot of people who are very, very curious about your point of view. You pique their interest. All right. What more can we know, please? About what about you makes people curious? All right, the Queen of Wands popping out real strong there. Yeah, lots of fire energy. You are a go-getter. I'm getting that you're someone who you don't require a whole lot of support to do what you need to do. You're someone who is very capable of going it alone. I do get the sense that you are popular, though. Whether people are, I get popular loner. Like, I'm not sure if you would like big groups. I'm getting the sense of someone who is very easy to get to know, or very easy to know about, but very, very hard to get close to and get to know, basically. Like, very much the sense of someone who gossip might follow you around. Like, people might really like talking about you. Because again, you have you have great ideas, you're very creative, you think outside of the box, and it makes you someone interesting to talk about. You also might be a little bit of a daredevil. You might be someone who likes a little bit of adrenaline rushes, and it might put you in situations where people just enjoy telling your stories, whether they were there or not. Like, you really might have issues with people gossiping about you just because there's stuff to talk about, especially around people who they don't really do much. So they get really attached to hearing your stories because you're always doing something. You're always doing something fun. You're always doing something new. You're always doing something exciting. The Queen of Coins. So two queens already. There is a sense, one, you're very deep. You come off as very deep. Again, someone who people really know about, a lot of people know about, but you're very, very hard to get to know. Likely you like small groups of friends, and that's part of what makes people curious. It feels very exclusive. Like, you have kind of an exclusive club. People consider your friendships to be very, very exclusive. So because of that exclusivity, I'm not going to try that again. Despite of that, they they or probably because of that, they're extra curious. Like, you come off as someone who it's a prize just to get to know you, so people compete to get to know you. In that vein, however, you might deal with jealousy. Jealousy might be something that you that you have a hard time with. um the Queen of Coins and the Queen of Wands are both they're both very sensual signs. So you might have issues with jealousy surrounding romantic relationships. Like, third parties might be a real problem in your romantic relationships, and it's because people are really curious about your romances as well, your relationship status, how your relationship is doing. Like, this makes people very, very curious. um a lot of it is because people are highly attracted to you. If you are in a relationship right now, people trust that there are people who would like that relationship to end. People are really, really curious about your relationship status and whether you're happy, whether they could do better, or whether you could do better, whether they could be better for you. Like, people are very, very curious about your relationship status. If you are not or if you are not in a relationship, if you're single, people assume that you're in a relationship because there's no way that you haven't been cuffed up. You know what I mean? And the Two of Coins. Now, the Two of Coins coming out right after the Queen of Wands and the Queen of Coins. This is very yin yang energy here. The Queen of Wands is very outspoken, very Aries energy, right? Very, very fast paced, very sensual in the way of like hot burning Friday night sensual. You know what I mean? The Queen of Coins, however, is very Capricorn energy, very deep, very sensual in the sense of like earthy and body, and very, very long lasting, slow moving energy as far as their work goes. Very contradictory to the Aries energy of fast motion, right? You have both of these sides to you. People see you operate in both of these energies equally. And it makes them very curious as to how you can do that. You're someone who people are really curious as to how you work, like literally how you operate, because there's something about your process that is almost magical. Like you are really good. If you, for instance, if you are a parent, people are shocked that you are capable of balancing being a parent with being your own self. If you are very, very involved with your career, people are shocked that you're capable of balancing a very, very steady career, like an up and coming career, with a personal life. You still manage to have some kind of personal life. You're very good at finding balance in your life, and it makes people curious as to how you manage to do that. I'm getting the sense of someone who constantly has things going on. You constantly have new things going on. You're constantly getting into new stuff, and it makes people curious as to how you could possibly manage everything that you're doing. I get the feeling that you might be someone who has issues with like when you tell your story, people might assume that you're lying. You might have issues with people assume or like that you are over exaggerating or very specifically that you're trying to impress them. Like you're telling these stories because you're trying to seem impressive. And then people get to know you and they realize that not only were you never trying to impress them because you don't have to. Every single thing you said is true and probably actually downplayed because I get the sense here of someone very, very confident but humble. Like there's there's more earth energy here now than fire energy. There's a very, very steady balance here. You have a very good balance to yourself. And the Hermit, bringing in that Virgo energy, and also bringing in the fact that you make people curious because you don't acknowledge the gossip. Gossip might follow you around, jealousy might follow you around, people and people and their more negative traits might follow you around sometimes, but you don't react to it. You don't respond to it. You're very good at keeping your cool. Again, I think I mentioned with the collective, calm, cool, and collected, you're really good at keeping your cool in the face of people who are actively trying to get under your skin. And it makes people curious. It makes the people around you curious because they wonder how you manage to deal with people who are all up in your face acting crazy. You know what I mean? And it makes the people who are all up in your face acting a certain way curious because they aren't getting a response. They're not getting what they want from you. It's a curiosity that builds into like a heavy frustration because they're not getting what they want out of you regardless of how much they push and push and push. Eventually it just makes them look bad, and it doesn't take very long for that to happen either. Like you are very I'm getting someone very self-focused. You're very focused on your own growth. You're very focused on moving forward. You're very focused on your own ideas. Like you have part of why people are curious about the ideas that you have, about the things that you have to say, is because of this balance that you have, is because of this depth that you have. You come off as someone who genuinely thinks about the things that you say before you say it. And it makes people curious. It makes people listen to what you have to say. And the Nine of Coins. Yeah, heavy, heavy earth energy. And with that matching fire energy, there's a whole lot of sensual energy here. People are very curious about how intimate moments would be with you, basically. Um, The Nine of Coins is very lush energy. And compared to the Two of Coins, it feels like a progressive thing. Like the Two of Coins is about balancing both sides of your life, and the Nine of Coins is about reaping those rewards. You're someone who is constantly and steadily seeing the benefits of being balanced in your life. Like you're someone who works hard to be balanced and who works hard to see things from every angle and who works hard to articulate yourself well, and you reap the benefits of that. And it makes people curious as to how you operate and how you got to be so good, like how you got to be so good with your words, how you got to be so knowledgeable, how you got to be so articulate. It makes people curious as to how you got to the place where you're at. With the Two of Coins at the exact middle of your spread here, however, people are curious about the fact that despite how accomplished they feel you are, despite the fact that people feel like you have every right to be maybe a little bit arrogant, that's not the case with you. You manage to still keep a very level head, despite the fact that you get rewards for the balance that you try to keep in your life. You don't get distracted by the rewards. You focus more on that balance. That's how it keeps coming in. That's how you keep up this progression. That's how you keep moving forward. You don't stop when you reach a goal. You keep moving. You don't lose your balance internally when you get more comfortable, right? You keep working. And the Four of Wands at the bottom of the deck, people are curious about you because you're happy. On top of all of this, despite of everything, you come off as very happy. You come off as very fulfilled. If that's not the case, it's definitely how people present yourself, how people think you present yourself. People are curious as to what makes you so happy. Like you come off as very bright, very shining, and people want to know what that glow is. They want to know where that glow inside of you is coming from. The couple in the Four of Wands, again, people and the children in the Two of Cups, or the Two of Coins, sorry. Again, people are really curious about your romantic situation. People are really curious about what your home life looks like. And we've got the fairy, ethereal and dreamlike, artistic and talented, gifted with words and performance. Gifted with words again pops out. Again, when people are very curious about what you have to say. When they hear what you say, they want to know more. You're someone who's very, very articulate and very good with your words. Ethereal and dreamlike, artistic and talented. You are very, very, I get the feeling, again, you're someone who's very deep. You come out with these new talents constantly. People are really curious about what you have going on because they feel like every time they see you, there's something new happening. There's something very dreamy about your energy. There's something that feels very magical about your energy. And dreamy and magical in the sense of like very, very earthy, like, okay, this is a depiction of a druid. The hermit in this deck is actually a druid. Very earthy magic. There's something very earthy about the magic that you have. Very, very sensual. All right, and we've got the turtle. Wise, easily contented, and well loved. People really, really care about you too. You're really, when gossip follows you around, I get the sense that it's not bad gossip a lot of the time. Again, jealousy probably sticks to you a little bit. You might have issues with jealousy following you around. But a lot of the gossip that follows you is really just people telling their stories about you. It really is just people talking about you because they like talking about you and because you're an interesting person to talk about. what makes people curious, especially strangers, especially people who are just hearing about you, people who have never met you, what makes people curious about you is just how well loved you are. People love you. So people, of course, people want to get to know you. They're curious about this person who has like all of these people who love them, all of these people who have nothing but really great things to say about them. And we've got the tiger, athletic and virile, sexually dominant, natural leader. Again, with that heavy, heavy sensual energy, people are very curious about how you would be in bed. They have incredibly people are curious about how you would be intimately. And there's something about you, the confidence that you exude. People people think that you would be very take charge intimately. And it's something that they really, really want to find out about, especially with these two queens here. There's strong domination energy here. And people are extremely curious as to whether or not that is the case. People would love to find out if that was the case. Brown bears, intelligent, inventive, and protective. And brown bears comes out right above the Two of Cups, which depicts bear cubs. Um, you are very protective of both yourself and the people around you. I get the sense that a lot of the stories that follow you, especially when told by people who care about you, the people that love you, there's stories about how you stood up for them. There's stories about how this all ties back around to the idea that you have very lofty ideals. People are really curious about you because of your ideals. You don't just say your ideals. You walk them too. You know what I mean? You live your ideals. People have stories about you standing up for them, about you standing up for what you believe in. And it makes people curious about you because there aren't a lot of people who are like that. That's a very rare trait. People want to know more about this person who all of these people have stories about being really strong, being capable of standing on your own 2 feet in your beliefs, and particularly protecting the people that you care about in doing so. You're very attached to the things that you believe, and you're very attached to the movements that you give your energy to. And it makes the things that you say even more captivating. It's part of why when you articulate yourself, when you speak, people are just not they just magnetize to it. They listen, they can't help but listen to you. And we've got the Phoenix, beautiful, mysterious, and regenerative. Yeah, and what comes out most with the Phoenix is just this idea that people have wanted to catch the Phoenix for forever. You're someone who feels so incredibly untamable. You're someone who feels not wild, but very, very free. Despite the fact that you have despite the fact that I feel like you have a lot of goals in your life, you have a lot of like grounded goals in your life. Again, there's a whole lot of earth energy here. Despite that, you are still someone who manages to be just so free. You have this very, very free energy about you. It makes people curious. You are just so very balanced. There's something about you that is so multifaceted in like the most extreme ways. When people feel like they've gotten to know you, it's like you'll pull a 180 on them. Regenerative energy. When people think that you've reached your end, you pull out an entirely new level. You're someone who always has an ace up your sleeve, and it makes people curious because they want to know what that ace is going to be. And we've got the fox, clever, agile, and nimble, sexually seductive. Well, sexually seductive came out again. That's no surprise. Clever also came out too. Again, very, very mental. You're very mentally strong. You're very, very clever. You're someone who I get that you might get into like battles of wits often, and you might be someone who's very regularly underestimated. People might regularly underestimate your intelligence, and you show them up when that happens. Okay, these are actually my quote cards. So let's see what people would say to you. What would strangers specifically say to you? What would anyone who is curious about you, the people who are most curious about you, what would they say to you? It's going to do specifically strangers, but this has been... There are a lot of strangers who are interested in you, very curious about you, but it's because there are people who are fascinated with you and follow your growth, people who you likely know, people who you've likely been around and know, you know what I mean? And so it's not an entirely, you're not only dealing with strangers here, so maybe not only strangers. The people who are most curious about you, what would they say to you? And we've got, your garden does not nourish me, your garden strikes against my hand at every turn. Mabel, Becca de la Rosa, and Mabel Martin. You are someone who, you're very, very difficult to read. They would tell you that you're very, very difficult to read. I get the feeling that you come off initially as someone who has such a bright heart. Again, with these lofty ideals, with all of these beliefs, someone who has stories, who goes around about them, about how they'll protect the people that they care about, how they'll stand up for their beliefs, you know what I mean? I get the feeling that you might have had issues in the past with people trying to take advantage with that, trying to take advantage of you and your heart, trying to take advantage of your really big open heart. And they've been caught off guard and blindsided by the fact that you're not someone who can be taken advantage of. It all wraps back around to the fact that people are really curious about you because they see all of these different sides to you. There are people who have stories about you ripping people's heads off, despite the fact that they also have stories about you being the kindest person in the entire world. You're not someone who's easily taken advantage of, and it makes people curious as to how you manage to pull that off, how you manage to be someone who is capable of putting your foot down and defending yourself, basically, telling people no when they're obviously trying to take advantage of you, while still being someone who wants to help and wants to put yourself out there and wants to see change and wants to protect the people that you care about. This might be part of why you prefer having small groups of friends, because you put so much of your energy and so much of your effort into the people that you care about and into the people that you love. You're picky about who you'll give that energy to. It's very, very understandable, especially if you've had issues with people trying to use you or trying to take advantage of your big heart. And we've got, all my girls like to fight. If history says anything, if it says anything at all, it is this: all women know how to do is burn. If her story says anything, and it says everything, we girls have been raised to walk through fire. The burning ones, Salma Dira. People would tell you that you are incredibly strong. You're incredibly strong. You're not someone who anyone would want to mess with. Again, people have stories about you defending yourself and defending other people. You're not someone who other people want to mess with, and they tell people that. That's part of what goes around about you, that you're not someone who people should mess with. It's part of why no one feels sorry for people who you end up biting the heads off of, because they all know that this was something that was going to happen. Just because you're a kind person doesn't mean that you're someone who can be taken advantage of, and you have been that lesson for many people. And we've got, I know you never intended to be in this world, but you're in it all the same. So why not get started immediately? The fourth sign of the zodiac, Mary Oliver. So between this card and the last card, there is a sense that part of the gossip that surrounds you, part of what people are curious about, is your history. You have likely been through a lot. You've likely been through a whole lot in your lifetime. It's part of what's made you into the really, really strong person that you are. And it's likely part of what's given you such a strong view on things, such a dedication to your views and to your ideals. You've lived through a lot of stuff. You know what you're talking about, and you are very personally connected to what you believe in. People are curious how about what happened to you in the past, but very specifically how it made you into the person that you are today. People are very, very curious as to the details of what happened to you because it made you into who you are. And we've got mirrors tell no tales. No more mirrors, that'll be my demise, because I still can't look my abuser in his eyes, and I tend to dream about things that you'd wake up from. I don't want to feel no more, Reggie. You are very, very, people would tell you that you bring out very strong emotions in them. It's part of what makes people curious. You're very magnetic. You draw people in, despite the fact that you can come off initially as someone who is just very bright, as someone who maybe lacks. There are some people who part of why your history interests a lot of people, part of what makes people curious about your history, is the fact that people are very shocked when they find out that you've been through a lot. People are very shocked when they find out that your history is not a happy one, or that it is not one that they would want to go through themselves. You know what I mean? It's not naivete that makes you such an idealist. It's the fact that you didn't roll over when bad things happened to you. People would tell you that you are what makes people curious, what people would ask you specifically is how you manage to be so strong, how you manage to stand on your own 2 feet and be so powerful about it. People are very, very curious about how you became who you are and how you managed to be who you are. It wraps back around to this idea that you are so very balanced in everything that you do and everything that you are. People are very curious as to how you manage to keep that balance. It's a very deep energy. It's one that's very easy to get sucked into and drawn into, and people get drawn into it a lot. You're a very, very, very interesting person, and it makes people incredibly curious about you and about where you come from, and specifically about where you're going. All right, loves, that is what I've got for you. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope it was fun. I hope it was enlightening. I will see you next time. Bye. All right, and we are on pile number 2 with the King of Clubs. And so already people are curious about you because you shine, very spotlight energy. People want to get more very local celeb energy. People want to get to know more about you. You're the kind of person that people like ask around about even. There's a possibility if you're big on social media, people if you're big on social media, there are definitely people who would love to like run into you or meet you. If you're not big on social media, when you're out and about in the world, people who run into you, even people who don't actually talk to you, they try to look for you online. They assume that you're someone who's big. Like, they assume that you're someone who has some kind of following. You give off very strong local celeb vibes. The King of Clubs is indicative of Leo energy. Very, very strong spotlight energy. You're someone who shines everywhere you go. You attract eyes when you walk into a room. People are curious about you because they want to know more about you. You're the kind of person who people ask around about. What more can we know, please, about what about you makes people curious? All right, so we've got the Page of Coins. You're a hard worker too. What puts you in the spotlight probably is your work, is your talents. Leo is a very creative sign as well, and the Page of Coins is incredibly hardworking. You are someone who deserves to be in the spotlight when you are in the spotlight. I have a feeling that it can make some people sick because you are often being recognized, even if you don't realize it. People talk about you. People are really curious about you, and people talk about you and hold you in a very high regard. And it can make people who are jealous of you very sick because they have nothing to say about your talents. Like, you're Leo is a very, very attractive sign traditionally. You are likely very physically attractive, and if that is the case, trust that there are people out there who assume that you have gotten pretty privilege or something like that in your life. And there are also people who recognize the fact that that's a lie. There's no denying the fact that despite you being naturally very magnetic, you deserve to be in the spotlight. You're a very, very hard worker. Your talents are not just, even if you were born with these talents, they're not talents that were just given to you all the way. You've had to work for how good you are. You've had to work for how far you've come with these talents, right? You weren't handed anything. And people who are jealous can get really, really salty about that. And we've got the star. Yeah, you strong spotlight energy. You are very often in the spotlight, whether you like it or not, I get. Because the page of coins is very humble energy, very, very low key energy. The Page of Coins is a hard worker and a worker that very often doesn't get recognition for the groundwork that they put in because they do all the groundwork, the things that people don't really think about, right? You are someone who, whether you like it or not, is often in the spotlight, and it makes people curious as to how you always end up in the spotlight because it seems like you don't necessarily want to be there. It seems like you would prefer to be allowed to continue to do your work privately. And it's not your fault that you are very, very magnetic, and you can't help the fact that people look at you when you walk into a room. You can't help the fact that your talent singles you out. You're not going to give up on working on the things that you want to work on, but you can't help the fact that being out in the public, being seen, will always draw attention. Having people see your work will always require people to see you as well. And we've got the Seven of Wands. Yeah, you're an incredibly hard worker. You are a very, very hard worker. And you operate like you have goals in mind. What makes people curious about you is where you're going in life. You look and seem like someone who has a goal in mind or has an ultimate achievement that you are longing for in mind. And it makes people really curious about that. People want to know what you're aiming for. People want to know what you're angling for and why you're working so hard, why you've put in all this work that you've put in, and why you continue to put in all the work that you continue to put in. And the Knight of Swords. Yeah, and the Knight of Swords is very, very fast moving Gemini energy. What makes people curious about you is the fact that you don't seem to be curious about anyone else. People can't help being curious about you because you don't give anyone else notice. It's almost like a reverse psychology thing. Regardless of how hard people try to get your notice, they can't. Regardless of how hard people try to disrupt your work, they can't. It makes people curious about where you get all of this fire from, where you get all of this, like, focus specifically from. And Three of Swords. What makes people curious is what goes on behind the scenes with you. People are really curious as to what your personal life is like because this is all very, very public energy. I do get the sense that your public image is one where people don't know a whole lot about you. That's part of what makes people curious about you, the fact that they don't know a whole lot about you. People want to know what goes on behind the scenes with you because it seems like you never have bad days. It seems like nothing can ever get under your skin, and people just don't think that that's possible. People just don't want to believe that that's possible. And the fact of the matter is, it's not possible, right? You, just like everyone else, have bad days. You, just like everyone else, has to deal with emotional trauma and with bad things happening to you. You're just capable of working through it. With the Seven of Wands at the very middle of your spread, you are capable of moving through and working. You're capable of moving through and working through bad things that may have happened to you and bad things that might be happening to you. And you do it all without giving anyone anyone a hint that anything's happening to you. You're a very strong person. You come off as an incredibly strong person. And people are curious as to where you get all this strength from. People are curious as to where you get all of this drive from. We've got the Emperor at the bottom of the deck. Yeah, people are curious as to where you get all of this fire from, where you get all of this push to be better from. Because there's strong self-improvement energy here. Again, people assume that you have a goal in mind. People assume that you have something that you're angling towards, something that you're working for. What makes people curious is where you're going and where you're going to end up. Because people know that it's going to be something big. There's no way that it's not going to be something big with you. And we've got the Centaur. Highly intelligent, insightful, healing and mystical, hard to know, harder to bother. Hard to know, harder to bother sticks out there. Yeah, I said that earlier with the Knight of Swords energy. What makes people curious about you is the fact that they can't get your attention. You are an impossible person to put off your mission. And you are so private that people don't even know what that mission is. Like, I get the feeling that part of what bothers the people who are jealous about you, especially the people who are jealous about your talents, is the fact that you don't even seem to realize just how talented you are. People think that you don't even realize just how talented you are. Whether that's true or not, whether that's the case or not, people it just seems to come so naturally to you, and people take your humbleness. That's what it is. That's what I'm looking for. People take your humbleness, people take the fact that you are naturally very, very good at what you do, and they read that as arrogance almost. And it's unfortunate because people will read whatever they want to read, right? People are going to see whatever they want to see in a person. And so occasionally people will take your humbleness as a form of arrogance, and it makes them curious as to how you can be so good at what you do and not even and act like it's nothing, act like everyone should do this. And I think for some of you, you probably don't realize just how talented you are. Like, that frustration is actually really well placed from these people. You don't realize just how talented you are. You don't realize that what you do is not something that everyone can do. You definitely don't do it in any way that everyone can do. And we've got the Minor Bird, intelligent, chatty, and popular. Popular loner energy again. You are very popular loner. People really want to know, and that's the second intelligent card to come out of the two cards that I've laid so far. People really want to know what your thought process is like. People are really curious as to what your thought process is like. We've got the Panther, exotically beautiful, mesmerizing, powerful, and athletic. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. People are curious about people are curious about your beauty regimen. People are very curious as to how you are so attractive, because that's definitely exotically beautiful. There are people who think that you have had work done, probably. Like, there are people who think that you prioritize how you look to the extent that you'd probably have like a really detailed skin routine or something like that. Whether that's the case or not, people just assume, there are people who assume that you prioritize how you look to the extent of possibly having work done or putting like hours into your beauty regimen every day. Regardless of how you identify, regardless of whether you are more masculine or feminine, like, there are people who assume that your looks are a high priority for you because you are a very attractive person. You especially come off as someone who's very, very well put together. It rolls back around to that hard to bother energy too. You come off as someone who you don't have bad days. Like, you don't like showing people when you have bad days. I think I mentioned it earlier, yeah, with the Three of Swords energy. People are curious about what goes on behind the scenes with you because you come off as someone who does not have bad days. You like putting your best foot forward. You are not someone who would leave the house looking raggedy, regardless of what's going on with you. And even if you yourself feel like you are looking not your best, people, your not best is still some people's like top. That's what they do. Whether you do your makeup, whether you actually do put hours into how you look or not, your not taking care of yourself is still peak. You still look like you're taking care of yourself even in your bad moments. And it makes people curious as to how you manage to pull that kind of thing off. How you manage to be it feels almost inhuman. There's a very mythical vibe to it. You might be someone who's like had people tell you before that you're not human. Like, I know a lot of people who've been told that like they're aliens or like they're sirens or anything like that, like mythical beings. You might be someone who hears stuff like that, whether jokingly or not, that like you're not human. There's something very ethereal to this vibe. There's something very, you manage to make yourself seem so well put together on the regular. You manage to keep yourself and your personal conditions so private that it makes people curious as to how you can pull that kind of thing off. And we've got Dove, innocent and pure, well loved and well sought after, romantic. People want to woo you. People are very curious as to what would make you fall in love. And it's very straightforward, fall in love. Like, this is the energy of people. People don't just want a one night stand with you. You know what I mean? Like, people want something very serious with you. People want to do very serious things with you. The lovebird just popped out. Ideal partner, wonderful homemaker, beautiful voice. Like, what makes people are very curious about how you would be in a relationship. People are very curious about what kind of partner you would be. And specifically, people are very curious as to what it would take to win you over and get you to be in a relationship with them. All of the cards here in the tarot cards, the figures in the deck, or the figures featured on the cards, they're not looking directly at anyone. They're all looking away. People are curious as to what it would take to get your attention, just like flat out, what it would take to get you to give them the kind of attention that you give to everything that you prioritize. Because you come off as someone who you can't be shaken from your path, right? So it does make people kind of romanticize and idealize what it would be like to be your partner. Like, people think that you would be the ultimate partner because you're so dedicated to what you do, you're so dedicated to what you care about. And that obviously being the person that you love the most would mean that you give them like insane amounts of dedication. Something that, whether it's true or not, it's how you come off. It's what makes people curious about you. What more can we know, please, about why people are curious about you? And we've got the Wyvern Dragon, elegant and high class, wealthy and powerful. People are curious about your... Very straightforward. People are curious about your financial state. You come off of someone very, very high value. People assume that you're someone who appreciates the finer things in life. And it makes people curious as to what your financial situation is like, whether it is, regardless of what your financial situation is like, you hold yourself as someone who's very high value, and people assume that means that like everything else in your life is high value too. I get the feeling that it can be very, very intimidating for people. Um, because again, a lot of the curiosity that follows you is people who want to know what it would take to have a serious relationship with you. The curiosity that follows you most is what it would take to win you over. And so this idea that you like high class things, that you're very luxurious, that you have a certain requirement of the people who approach you and the partners that you have, it can be very, very intimidating for the people who want to get to know you like that. They feel like they don't measure up. It's very common for people to feel like they do not measure up and they're not good enough for you. That in fact might have been something that has like come back to bite you in relationships, especially with the Three of Swords coming out here. There's this sense that you might be focused so much on a specific goal, and you might be focused so much on personal improvement specifically because you have a rough history with relationships in your past, especially romantic relationships. I'm getting especially romantic relationships, and that is part of why it is so difficult for people to even get your attention in that way. People are curious as to what made you close yourself off, basically, like, because you feel very closed off to even the idea of a romantic situation. Emotionally unavailable. It feels very emotionally unavailable, whether that's the case or not. Like, people feel like you are very unavailable regardless of your situation, and they want to get to know more of why that is the case. You may have dealt with, I think I was starting to say this earlier, you may have dealt with like partners feeling that they don't measure up even in your relationship. Like that might be something that has like really severely impacted your relationships in the past. This idea that no matter what they do, they can't measure up to you. And whether you feel that way or not, that's not important. You can tell them all day till you're blue in the face that you don't care about any of the things that they're concerned about. They still feel like they don't measure up. That kind of thing may have been a concern of you, or may have been a problem in the past with relationships, especially romantic relationships. And we've got the penguin. Territorial, curious, weak constitution. Yeah, territorial sticks out the most there. You are very protective of your space. Again, someone who's very, very private, someone who's very, very protective of their space. Um, I get the sense here that it just piques people's curiosity more. Like again with that reverse psychology energy, it just piques people's curiosity more, that you seem closed off to the idea of a relationship, and that you seem closed off to the idea of being wooed by anyone, basically. Very independent. You have incredibly independent energy here, and it's the kind of energy that's very hard to knock off its path, basically. And it's kind of weird because it feels like a lot of the people who are interested in you, that's how they feel they would have to get your attention. They would have to knock you off of your path because you're so focused on what you're doing that you're not going to see your focus on anything else until you get what you want or until you accomplish your goal. That also might have been an issue in the past with your relationships. You might have had an issue with romantic partners feeling like you don't prioritize them, when that's not the case. You're just not someone who's willing to give up the things that you care about to be in a relationship with someone. You're not the kind of person who's willing to change yourself and change your direction just because you've gotten into a relationship with someone. And that's great, by the way. That is like the best way to be. But it might have been an issue in the past because there are people who are very insecure about that kind of thing, and they don't belong in your life if they're not going to support you and what you're doing. And we've got the falcon, sharp-sighted, quick learner, and loyal. Yeah, you come off as someone who would be the ideal partner. The lovebird and the dove came out earlier, I think, with messages about that. Yeah, well loved, well sought after, an ideal partner, wonderful homemaker. You come off as someone who would be the ideal partner, loyal with the Falcon, right? Again, you're very loyal to what you do, you're very loyal to your beliefs. You are incredibly, people see you be incredibly loyal to the things that you do and to the things that you're dedicated to. And it makes them believe that you would be loyal to the people who you bring into your life as well. You likely have like people who you have been incredibly loyal to, and maybe not had the best experiences with them afterwards. The Three of Swords weighs really heavy in your reading, especially at the end of the 5 card line. Again, there's this sense here that people are really curious as to what made you close yourself off and what made you kind of step away from being, what made you kind of step away from other people, basically. This is strong hermit mode energy that clashes really hard with the Leo energy here too. Again, you can't help being in the spotlight. Whether you like it or not, people focus on you and people are really curious about you. People have a lot of questions about you. This might be something that has like regularly irritated you and been actually a really, really heavy burden on you. I also can't help but notice the 3 birds that came out there that ended up like kind of grouping together, the lovebird, the dove, and the falcon. 3 birds. They're, people want to catch you. Not in a bad way necessarily, but people feel, again, like to be with you, they would have to cage you in a sort of way. Like, you're someone who is so free and so independent. You may have issues with people who feel like you don't need them or feel like you don't prioritize them, when that's not the case, but you need someone who is secure in themselves enough to be able to support you regardless of what you're doing in that moment. And we've got the train. Traditional, reclusive, and aloof. Another bird as well. And cranes are known to be very, very loyal. They mate for life. Again, with that energy of you would be the ideal partner. People are very curious as to what kind of partner you would be, and people are very curious as to how the hell they can make you be their partner so they can figure it out. Territorial has come up twice. Or, no, it's traditional, not territorial. Reclusive and aloof, though. Again, people feel like you are a very difficult person to get to know, and it just makes them more curious. It just makes them want to know you even more. Just like the more toxic people who are interested in you, they actively want to, the word tame comes to mind. Like there's a certain appeal in someone who has so little interest in the people around them, right? Like, or not the people around them, but so little interest in things like a romantic relationship or anything like that. So it makes them want them even more, right? It makes them want to, the word conquer comes to mind. Very, very unhealthy, toxic ideals, very, very unhealthy, toxic energy. And it's not the only energies that are interested in you, but there is a sense that some of the people who are interested in you, they are interested in you specifically because you seem like someone who would be so difficult to catch and so difficult to lock down and so difficult to cuff up. All right, and we are going to be looking at what people would say to you. So what would people ask you? What would the people who are most curious about you say to you? The energy here does feel mostly like strangers. It feels like you're in a really big hermit mode right now. So a lot of the people who are curious about you are people from the outside looking in. They are primarily strangers and people who you don't really know or people who you don't really interact with. So if these people were to talk to you, what would they ask? What would they say? All right. You will become a part of that celestial beauty that you admire. Matilda, Mary Shelley. People would tell you that you're gorgeous. People would definitely try to riz you up. Like, there are definitely people who they think that the best way to get into your heart would just be to flat out be incredibly complimentary. And it's because people don't know how to get into your good graces, so being complimentary seems like the safest path. The people would definitely, they'd raise you up. They would, people would be very, very complimentary towards you if they could finally get you to talk to them. The people who are most curious about you, they would be extremely flattering while speaking to you and trying to get your attention. Angels have many faces. I have wrestled with angels, and I am stained with light, and I have no shame. Mary Oliver. I was a winged obsessive. My moonlit feathers were paper. I lived hardly at all among men or women. I spoke only to angels. Louise Gluck. They would call you an angel. Like, people would just raise you up. It's crazy. There are people, the thing that people are most curious about with you is how they are supposed to get you to pay attention to them, how they're supposed to get you to give them a chance. That is what people are the most curious about you about. Or that is what people are the most curious about. And because they have no other direction, if they were to speak to you, they would be highly flattering. They would try to get your attention by wooing you really heavily. Poetically, almost. Like, this has all been very poetic so far. Like, there is a sense that you yourself are a creative, right? So people with what little information they have about you, people would try to cobble together the best way to compliment you and the best way to flatter you. It would be very poetic. Likely there would be a whole lot of like creativity to the things that they say. People would try to stand out by being unique in their flattery, poetic in their flattery. And we've got the color red is hereditary, Joan Tierney. Every evil mother wears the face of my mother. Every day I am confronted with this. She loved me and killed me anyway. Ooh, and we wrap back around to the Three of Swords energy to end just like it ended on your 5-card line. What people are curious about, and what if they had the balls to ask you, if they really had the balls to ask you, what they would ask you about is what happened, what made you the way that you are, what hurt you. Because people definitely assume that something hurt you. It's not the most flattering energy, but people definitely assume that something hurt you, and that's how you got to be who you are and how you are. People would ask you what it was. The center of every poem is this: I have loved you, and I have had to deal with that. Letters from Medea, Sal Madeira. There are people, admirers, there are secret admirers who are convinced that you are the one for them. That is part of why they are so very curious about what it would take to get you on their arm, because they are convinced that you are the one for them. And there are definitely people who would tell you that they've fallen in love with you from afar, and tell you that they've been trying to get your attention for however long. It's very flattering energy. If not, I can see how it can feel overwhelming when you are specifically trying to focus on yourself and self-growth like you are. But I hope you are flattered by it nonetheless. That is what I've got for you, loves. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope it was fun. I hope it was entertaining. I will see you next time. Bye. All right, and we are on pile number 3 with the 5 of Spades. So already what I'm getting is that you are someone who people don't want to mess with. Like, people are curious about you because you're very intimidating. You come off as someone very, very intimidating. There's the possibility that gossip might surround you, specifically gossip told by people who have had like not great exchanges with you. What I get is that you're someone who you don't take disrespect. you don't take disrespect well, basically. You come off as someone very, very confident, and you come off as someone who knows your worth, basically. Like, someone who's not going to take people talking down to you, are not going to take people trying to take advantage of you. And the kind of people who will do stuff like that, the kind of people who will be condescending to people they don't even know, the kind of people who would try to take advantage of a kind person, these are the kind of people who would actively gossip about them and try to make them seem like the bad guy too. Yet the Wheel of Fortune and the Death card, there's a sense here that something happened with these people and you ended things. Like, you made sure that it was ended. They might have started it, you ended it. And that's the kind of gossip that follows you around. It makes people really curious about you, though, because these people, it's not like these people have the best kinds of, the Three of Swords. It's not like these people have the best kinds of reputations, you know what I mean? Like, that's why they're these kinds of people to begin with. They didn't start being these kinds of people with you and their interaction with you. All it does is make people more curious about you when these people talk about you. So I do get the sense that you are someone who your name has come up in rooms that, like, you don't even know about. You're just someone who people happen to, you're just someone who gossip seems to follow. And it's specifically because you are also the kind of person who will stand up for yourself in situations where you have to stand up for yourself. Even if you are not a super confident person, even if your standing up for yourself happens almost kind of as like outbursts, you come off as someone very confident. And almost ironically, because of these rumors that follow you around, you come off as someone who's really well put together too, obviously, like someone who's not going to take shit from other people. It makes you very intimidating. What more can we know, please, about what makes people curious about you? What makes people curious about you? We've got the Lovers. Also seems to be a theme with this reading so far. People are really curious about what your romantic situation is like. They're also curious about how, I get the sense that you are a very, though the rumors that follow you around might make you sound like a hardened badass, you are likely also someone who's very, very kind and very, very, very generous. That's how you get into these situations with people that would try to take advantage of you. They think that they can take advantage of you until they find out that they can't. You know what I mean? And so it makes people curious as to which part of you is real, almost. Like, again, these are people who don't really know you. They're just people who have like heard stuff about you and like kind of seen you from afar. And so they get conflicting stories about you and they get conflicting information about you, and it makes them curious as to who you really are. Like, who are you actually outside of the stories and outside of the rumors? Like, who are you? And the Seven of Cups. Yeah, very grab bag. People are very, very curious as to who you are past everything that everyone else is saying about you. There's something very mysterious about this energy. Like, you come off as a very, very mysterious person. People want to know more about you almost entirely because you're hard to get to know. You're a difficult person to get to know. You are very, very private. You come off as someone very, very private. There's something that is very mysterious about you. And the Four of Cups. And you don't pay attention to anyone else. You are very focused on your own thing. The way that the way that person is turned entirely away from the bird that's singing behind them. Like, the chirping birds, the gossip, the people that talk about you, you are completely uninterested in it. What it reminds me of is the birds card in Lenormand. It speaks of like anxious gossip. It speaks of like people chittering and chattering outside, right? Like, you are You are very, very private. You're very, very closed off, and it makes people curious because you seem very, very unaffected by these rumors. And again, some of these rumors are not very nice. Some of these rumors paint you as someone who like can be kind of vicious, and you just seem not to care. You come onto the scene and you come onto the scene and you seem like you don't really care what people think about you, and you don't really care if people like you or not even. It makes people super curious about you and super curious about, again, who you actually are. People want to get to know you past the rumors that surround you and past the things that other people say about you. We've got the Judgment card. So between the Judgment card and the Lovers card, there's something that feels very, very divinely oriented about you too. You feel very divinely protected. You're very spiritually protected. People are curious about that specifically. What I get is that the people that have done you dirty, the people that are spreading these rumors, I get the feeling that people have seen bad things happen to them after they've talked about you. Like they've seen karma hit these people super hard after they've talked about you or after they've had experiences with you. You're very, very divinely protected. And even people who don't necessarily believe in that kind of stuff can't help but notice it. Like, wow, that's like the third person that I know who has gotten like crazy bad luck immediately after talking about this person badly. Like, obviously, there must be something there. Like, you seem very divinely protected. And because of that, people are curious about what your spirituality looks like. If you're someone who is very openly spiritual, if you're someone who's very openly mystical, there are definitely people who feel like you've put spell work on them. There's definitely people who think that you might have done maybe the not the nicest stuff to them magically. Um, Ironically, with the Four of Cups in the direct middle of your spread, and even the Seven of Cups right next to it, I have no doubt that you have done nothing to these people. I have no doubt that these people do not matter to you. And the people who are most curious about you, they also have no doubt that you've done nothing to these people, regardless of how interested you might be in magic, regardless of how spiritual you might be openly. Like, there are people who you are just so uninterested in the gossip. You are just so uninterested in the things that follow you around that there's no way you could possibly have done anything to these people because you don't care enough to do so. You never have. You've never put off any kind of vibe of caring enough to do anything to these people. So what makes people curious is how then you get this divine protection, how then this kind of karmatic justice follows you around. It can't help but pique people's interest. They want to know more about just what kind of person you are if you have like spiritual protection that thoroughly. And the Temperance card. Yeah, between the Temperance card, the Judgment card, and the Lovers card, you're also very, very self-contained. Like, again, with that private energy, people are curious about you because you don't let people in. You don't let people know anything about you. Like, I get even like your public image is a public image that you don't want a public image. Like I get the feeling of someone who is very, very private and very, very focused on their own spiritual healing even comes to mind. Between the Judgment card and the Temperance card, there's a sense of like spiritual healing even. You you are someone who is very, very focused on yourself and very focused on where you are at any given moment. So it makes people curious as to what you've got going on. You're just so private and so closed off that people want to know more about you. And we've got the Page of Cups at the bottom of the deck. And the Page of Cups has very strong destiny energy too. Again, with that protected energy, again, with that spiritual protection energy. People feel like you are very divinely oriented. People feel like you are very spiritually protected. I do get the sense here that you come off as someone who has a solid idea of where you're going, or like someone who very solidly believes in your own intuition, like someone who is very good at going with the flow and going wherever your intuition specifically takes you. And it makes people curious as to how you can be like that. Again, people really want to know more about your spirituality. People really want to know more about what kind of, especially if you're open about magic or anything like that, people want to know more. If you talk about this stuff on social media or anything like that, there are definitely people who follow you for it. There are definitely people who like hearing you talk about it. People are very, very curious as to how you got to be where you are spiritually. And how you got to be so gifted spiritually. What more can we know, please? About what makes people curious about you. And we've got the lovebird, ideal partner, wonderful homemaker, beautiful voice. So beautiful voice actually stands out with the Four of Cups here. People really like to hear you speak. And very specifically, I'm getting like sing for a lot of you. There's some of you that are very talented with singing. You have a very beautiful voice. And there are people who, if you are talented at singing, there are people who think that you've been classically trained. Like they're actually curious as to whether or not you have had classical training. If you are not someone who is a singer, then whatever talent you are open with, if you are open with a talent, whether that's playing music, whether that's gardening or anything like that, like people wonder if you've been classically trained in what you do, or if you have like schooling in what you do. You just seem like someone who is very, very good at what you do, to the point where it can't just be self-taught. And we've got the otter, underestimated, territorial, and selfish. So when I hear selfish, specifically what I think of is your refusal to pay attention to these other people. Like, less selfish, more self-centered, in the way of you don't pay attention to what other people have to say about you. And it makes people curious as to how you've gotten such a thick skin, honestly. Like, people wonder how you manage to not care about any of the things that are said about you, how you manage to brush off the fact that there are people who talk about you or anything like that. Like, people see you as a very, very strong person. And especially the people who know you, like if they've been the people who've been close to you, the people who manage to get close to you, they've seen you be consistently underestimated by people, and they're curious as to how you always manage to come out on top, because there is the sense here that you do always manage to come out on top. And we've got the orca, competitive, killer instinct, ruthless. Yeah, you always manage to come out on top somehow. People are very curious as to, again, how you manage to be so good at what you do. People are really, really curious as to where this talent comes from, how you have gotten to be so talented. There are definitely people who would like pick your brain, who follow you or are interested in you specifically because they would love to pick your brain about the things that you're interested in, the things that you do, any talents that you're open about. Scorpion, adaptable, survivor, and loyal. Yeah, adaptable sticks out the most there. There's just something, you're constantly evolving in what you do and how you operate, and people are really curious as to how you manage to constantly get better at the things that you do. And we've got goldfish, classically beautiful, lucky, easily contented. People, lucky stands out most there. Again, people want to know more about your spirituality. People want to know more about how you can possibly pull off the kind of talent that you pull off. There are definitely people who think magic has something to do with it. There are for sure people who think that you have, if like classical training hasn't or even has been a part of it, like magic has something to do with the way that you manage to be so good at what you do, especially if you're openly spiritual. And we've got the Swan, touchy, vain, and high standards. And so high standards sticks out there. Again, there are people who want to know how you manage to keep yourself to such a high standard, how you manage to constantly top those standards, how you manage to constantly get better. And I do get a feeling that there are people who read that as vain. I do get the feeling that there are people who they read your disinterest in the things that are said around you, and sometimes the people around you because of it, as being almost arrogant, when that's not the case. What's actually going on there is the fact that you are very focused on yourself. Again, very divinely oriented. You have your own thing going on. You have your own goals in mind, and you have your own intuition to follow. So you don't focus or give time to people who are trying to distract you from your path. And people are curious as to how you manage to do that. There are a lot of people who are curious as to, I think I mentioned it earlier, how you manage to have such a thick skin in a world that very often seems to be trying to take you down. I do get the sense that you're very popular. Popular loner. And we've got the Seahorse, caretaker, great paternal instinct, romantic and idealistic, dexterous. And so the Seahorse and the Lovebird now, there are definitely people who wonder what it would be like to, and the Lovers to start your line, actually. There are people who wonder what it would be like to have a family with you. And I am getting very traditionally family with you. Like, there are people who wonder what it would be like to have kids with you or to create with you. Even if it's not children, just flat out create with you, create a legacy with you of some sort. There are people who think that you would be the ideal partner, straight on the Lovebird card. There are people who think that you would be the ideal partner. And with the Seahorse, there are people who think that you would be a really great parent too. There are definitely people who wonder they're curious as to what having like a legitimate traditional family with you would be like, because they feel like you would be really, really good at being a parent. You're someone, and frankly, you do come off as someone who would be very good at being a parent. You don't pay attention to the squabble that happens around you. You're very good at focusing on yourself. You're very good at following your intuition. And you're very good at continuing to move forward and continuing to heal. The Temperance card is all about healing and having balanced health, right? Like, you come off as someone who would be very good at taking care of small beings, whether that's animals or people. And we've got the Yinglong, magical, good listener, and secretive. Yeah, those three words kind of sum up everything that I've been saying. Again, you come off as someone very, very magical. There's something very mystical about you. People are very curious as to how magic works in your life, basically. Even people who don't call it magic, they're curious as to how, like, luck works in your life, or how that kind of thing works out for you. And we've got the Fairy, mischievous, gossip, a cheat. Gossip comes out specifically there. Again, gossip follows you around. And with mischievous and a cheat, what I'm getting there with the gossip is that, again, people are very curious as to how you manage to not care about the things that are said about you, because I do get the sense that there have been situations in your life where, like, not the nicest rumors have gone around about you, or not the nicest things have been said about you, and they've been wrong. They've been said by people who are undeniably wrong. And there are a lot of people who are curious as to how you manage to keep such a level head and how you manage not to care. For some of you, I'm even getting that, like, you've had to continue to have relationships with these people, like coworkers, friends, family, stuff like that. Like, you've had to continue to have relationships with people that have, like, been not so great with you, and you're capable of being mature about it. You're capable of not necessarily not holding a grudge, because I don't get the sense of someone here who would give, like, I don't get the sense that you'd give these people another chance after finding out that they've done you dirty. But I do get the sense that you're someone who, like, because you're so thick-skinned, and because you try so hard not to care about what other people say about you, you're capable of still working with them and being around them if you have to. All right. Now, what would the people who are most curious about you say to you if they could say anything to you? Did you get the sense that the people who are most curious about you are people that you know, you just don't know them very well? Like, I get the sense that you're someone who kind of keeps like friends at a distance. You keep most people at a distance. You might be, again, a very difficult person to get to know. The yin yang secretive comes out there. Like, you're a very private person. You've gone through maybe not the best experiences with people. So the people who are most curious about you, it kind of feels like they're people who know you and who you just don't know very well. They're people who want to know you better. Their curiosity stems from a place of really wanting to know you better. What would the people who are most curious about you say if they were to say anything to you at all? All right, and we've got, love me or leave me and let me be lonely. Been down so long that happy is holy. I'd rather be somewhere else with anyone but me. Anyone but me, Joy Crooks. There are people who are very curious. Any past romantic relationship that you've had, even maybe past friendships, like very serious past friendships, they wonder where you are now and who you're with. Like, any exes that you have, they don't like thinking about you with other people. They, especially any recent exes that you have, any exes that you have that like recently fell out of your life, they are sick at the idea of you thinking of other, or they're sick at the idea of you being with other people. They're still very attached to your energy. And again, they're curious about what you're doing. They're curious about what your love life looks like. They're curious about what you've got going on behind the scenes in that case. And they would ask you about it. They would ask you if you still care about them. They would ask you if you've replaced them yet. And we've got, let no one think me a weak one, feeble-spirited, a stay-at-home, but rather just the opposite, one who can hurt my enemies and help my friends. Stronger than lovers' love is lovers' hate, incurable in each the wounds they make. Hate is a bottomless cup, I will pour and pour. Medea, an evil maid not born, Jason and the Argonauts, Euripides. So both of those cards are angled towards really serious romantic, like the people who are most curious about you right now are past romantic relationships. Very specifically romantic relationships here. Any exes that you have are, they would do a lot to find out more information about what you've got going on right now and like who you've got it going on with. Like, there are people who are very regretful over losing you, and they deal with a whole lot of regret over the fact that you're never going to come back, because this is the kind of energy of like done. Like, they know that you're never coming back. They know that things are done. And again, I get the feeling that these are some of the people who were spreading rumors about you. Like, these are some of the people that were talking about you. These are some of the people that couldn't help themselves when everything fell apart. So, like, they know deep down, like, not only would you not give them another shot, they don't deserve another shot. Like, that's the mean way to say it, but it's the truth. Like, they know that they don't deserve another shot. So they just kind of torture themselves by constantly being insanely curious about what you've got going on and who you've got it going on with. These people want to know more about your romantic situation specifically. And we've got burning things. The city looks so pretty, do you want to burn it with me till the skies bleed ashes and this fucking skyline crashes? City, Hollywood, and dead. These people would ask if you could start over, basically. They'd ask if you would be willing to rip down everything and start over again. This is a very, very blind. It's interesting that these energies specifically took over this specific part of this reading. Expect messages from exes in your life, people who maybe things didn't end the best with. Um, I am sitting right outside of the holiday season right now, like literally right outside of the holiday season right now. This reading is timeless, but sometime within the next month, even, regardless of where you are in the year, sometime within the next month, expect some kind of notification that these people are still very, very all up in your energy. If you've been feeling kind of weighed down or bogged down lately, or if you've been feeling like, even with the Four of Cups and the bird specifically singing at this person, like if you've been feeling like there's an energy attached to you, it would be a really good idea to cleanse yourself, cleanse the energy around your house. Like there are definitely people who are all up in your energy because they're curious about what you've got going on now that they aren't in your life. And we've got, maybe I am too red for all the slaughter carried within me, bastard child of water, lake swelled with rotting fish. What are you searching for when you drag me from you? Phlebotomy is told by blood, torn a great house. Yeah, these people, they would ask you, they're curious if you still think of them. They're curious if you still think of them and think of the bad things that they did to you, because ultimately these people know that they don't have another shot with you. They know that for a lot of these people, it's been too long. Even like they went through this whole phase where they gossiped about you. They went through this whole phase where they talked about you and they told everyone that they wanted nothing to do with you, and they worked that out of their system, and now they're back in the spot where they're just obsessed over you, and they're really, really up in your energy, and they're really curious about what you've got going on, and they can't help it. And they also know that even if you were to give them another shot, what are they going to do? Bring you back around all these people who they were talking shit about you to? What are they going to say? How are they going to explain that? Like, these people know that they've kind of backed themselves into a corner. They've kind of trapped themselves in a corner. It's unfortunate, but it also means that when they reach out to you, expect it to be kind of sporadic. Like for some of you, it might not even be like a direct message. It might be someone like liking a picture on accident or something, like getting a notification that like someone's been looking at your stories or something like that. Like, just expect some kind of message or notification from someone who has been, possibly someone's more than someone, who has been all up in your energy recently and very, very curious as to what you've been going through and what you have going on now that they're no longer around you. All right, loves, that is what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope it was fun. I hope it was enlightening. I will see you next time. Bye. All right, and last but certainly not least, we are on pile number 4 with the 3 of Hearts. Already I'm getting that people talk about you over drinks. Like, you are a topic of conversation in very fun spaces for people, basically. It's very light, flirty energy. It's definitely the kind of energy where like groups of friends have been interested in you before. Like groups of people have been curious about you and wanted to know more about you. It's also very definitely a more romantic leaning way. It can be platonic, but this is very relationship heavy. Like people are curious about what it would be like to be in a relationship with you. And there are also definitely people who are curious about what it would be like to be and more intimate with you. I always look for the best way to say that, and I always settle on intimate. But yeah, there are definitely people who are curious about what it would be like to be in a more intimate situation with you. And I get the sense that like these are also people who you might not know very well, like people who you like meet in passing, or like people who like see you out and about. You're just a very attractive person. I'm very magnetic. I'm getting very magnetic. You're a very, very appealing person naturally. What more can we know, please, about what makes people curious about you? And we've got the Eight of Wands. Yeah, people who you don't know very well. I'm getting specifically like social media even. I'm thinking like Page of Swords energy. There are people who have been writing and deleting texts. They want to get to know you better. There's a lot of people who want to get to know you better or who want to start communications with you. Especially if you're big on social media, there are people who have been fans of yours or people who have followed your progress online that or really want to get to know you on a more personal level. They really like you, and they've liked you for a second is how it feels, and they really want to get to know you more on a personal level. And the King of Wands. And both of these are fiery bird energies right here. That's the better way to hold that. Fiery bird energies here. There is this sense here that people are curious as to how you manage to be so magnetic, so bright. The King of Wands is even Phoenix energy. There's definitely this sense that people have seen you go through some really, really tough times in your life. Very Phoenix energy, rising from the ashes, right? That might be part of why there's this energy following you around now, that there are people who want to reach out to you after all this time. You might have just gotten to a point in your life where you are doing a little bit more stable and people feel a little bit more comfortable reaching out to you. Or you might have you might just openly be in a good place in your life right now, and people are more comfortable thinking about reaching out to you. People are curious just in general about you, and they want to get to know you better. The Ace of Wands. Yeah, and the Ace of Wands is a pen here. Like, there's a lot of people who really want to get to know you better and are like penning messages. They're specifically trying to figure out how to open lines of communication with you, just in general. A lot of fire energy here too. There's a whole lot of fire energy, wrapping back around to the fact that people are very attracted to you. There are a lot of people who would love to get to know you more intimately. There are a lot of people who are curious about what you would be like more intimately. And the Seven of Wands, another Wands card here too. The first person here, though, these people don't know you very well. Again, I think I mentioned that before. These people don't know you very well. That's part of why their curiosity is very vague, because this feels very vague. These are people who feel like they know you really well. Again, especially if you're big on social media, these are people who have been following your growth and following what you've been going through. There's this energy here that, again, that you've been through a lot, and you've been through a lot publicly. And these people have watched you grow, and they've watched you evolve, and on some level they feel kind of close to you just through like a parasocial way. But on another level, they really, really want to get to know you better. They understand that they don't know you, and they'd like to get to know you know you on a more intimate level, in not just that intimate way. The Seven of Wands does speak of competition. These people are definitely concerned that they're curious about what your romantic situation looks like. There are a lot of people who are very curious about what your romantic situation looks like, and they very much already feel like they're having to compete with people. You feel very high commodity. This feels very high, like you're a high, not high commodity, high demand. You're in very high demand. So there are a lot of people who really, really want to get to know you better, and they want to get to know you on a more intimate level, so they feel like they have to beat other people to the punch, basically. And the Hanged Man. And the Hanged Man here is depicted by Sleeping Beauty. Again, these people feel like they have to be the first ones there, like they're beating other people to you. Their curiosity is very, very broad and is most specific in your romantic situation. There are a lot of people who are very curious about your romantic situation. And there are a lot of people that's also the first not fire sign. And it's indicative of Pisces, this very dreamy sense. There are people who are very curious as to what kind of lover you'd be, like partner, just in general, you'd be. Um, the the Ace of Wands here is the paintbrush of creation, right? There's this sense here that people are very they I'm having the hardest time speaking even. They have a hard time articulating themselves because they have a lot of things that they imagine about you. That's what I'm trying to get across here. Like these people have a lot of dreams that they have about you. They don't know a whole lot about you. Again, this curiosity is very unspecific because these people don't know you very well. They like to think that they know you very well, and they feel kind of like they know you because they know what you've gone through publicly, you know what I mean? But they don't know you very well. And because of that, all of this energy kind of it channels itself into like dreaming. They imagine what it would be like to be with you. You might have issues with people idealizing you and trying to fit you into a mold because they have assumed that's how you are. Like this feels very private. You do feel very private. You and if you're not very private, it's just that these people don't know a whole lot about you. So they have to kind of fill in the gaps where they want to know more, right? So you might have issues with people like creating whole personas for you and creating whole personalities for you. And then once they meet you, they act almost disappointed that you're not who they thought you were. But you never told them that you were that kind of person. Like these people just kind of made assumptions about you and filled in all the gaps about you, and now you're stuck with having to deal with that. You're stuck with having to deal with what they created to themselves, right? And Temperance. Um, I get that you're very patient. There's something very patient about the Temperance card, about the balance in the Temperance card. I get the feeling that you're very patient, especially with these people who are very, very attached to knowing more about you, and some of them feel very, very disrespectful in how they try to go about knowing more about you. You are a very patient person. There are definitely people who are curious as to how you manage to be so patient. I do get the sense that, like, I get the sense that you might be one of those people who, like, random people will come up to you and will talk to you. Like, you're just one of those people, right? Like, random people will just come up to you and will just speak to you. And people are curious as to how you are so patient with that. You're a very patient person. I get the feeling that you're a very accepting person. And that's part of why people like you so much, because you are very, very popular. People like you a whole lot, even though they don't know a whole lot about you, even though they have to imagine to fill in a lot of the gaps. Like, people like you a whole lot. What more can we know, please, about what makes people curious about you? And we've got the Canary. Restricted, undervalued, and gossip. Gossip jumps out the most there. Again, I get the feeling that gossip follows you, and it's not bad gossip, it's the kind of gossip of like friends drinking around a table. The Three of Hearts is indicative of the Three of Cups, right? Very, very drinking around the table energy. It's not bad gossip, but again, it does lead to this kind of situation where people assume they know you, and they attach attributes to you that aren't you and don't exist and have never been you. Huge possibility that you have issues with that kind of thing on the regular, especially when you're meeting people. And we've got the Bat. Misunderstood. Misunderstood jumps out. I don't even need the rest of it. Weak constitution and reclusive, but misunderstood is definitely the thing that stands out the most there. You are it's you probably deal very often with people misunderstanding you, or people like misreading the things that you say. You might be one of those people who people assume that you're flirting. I and it's not, it's literally just the energy of I'm just talking in hot. Like, people, you might have issues with people reading whatever they want out of the things that you say and whatever they want out of the things that you do, because they really want to hear certain things from you, or they really want you to be a certain way because they are interested in you. And we've got the Lion, showstopper, adaptable, healthy feminine. Showstopper, you are, and the Lion is very fiery energy to match the fiery energy that's been a part of your reading so much. You catch the spotlight regardless of whether or not you're trying to. And it makes people curious. It makes people want to know more. And the thing about the spotlight is you can only see what's on the surface under it. It only highlights whatever you can see, right? I get the sense here that you are, especially with the Hangman and this Piscean energy, you are a whole lot deeper than people want to believe you are. You're a whole lot deeper than people want to see you as a lot of the time. You might have issues with loneliness, honestly. Like, you might have issues with being in situations that have made you kind of lonely because people misread you on purpose, is what it feels like. People misunderstand you sometimes on purpose, is what it feels like, because they really want you to be a certain way. The paintbrush of creation right at the middle of your spread too. Again, it feels like people will like pen in whatever they really want to believe about you because they really want that to be the case. More than anything else, I'm getting that you probably have issues with people assuming that you like them more than you actually do, or that things are more serious with you than they actually are. Adaptable with the Lion also matches temperance, and that, again, I get the sense that adaptable is impatient. Like, you're very patient with these people, despite the fact that it feels rude, frankly. It feels very rude. It feels very, very rude that people would write in whatever they want and make assumptions about you because they want you to be their dream person rather than appreciating you and getting to know you for who you are. It's very, very rude energy. And despite that, you come off as someone very, very, very patient. You come off as someone who doesn't bite these people's heads off despite the fact that they might deserve it in the moment. You very calmly correct people and you very calmly move on, which is probably part of why it's harder to get to know you, because you do move on after these situations. Like, it's not like you correct these people and then you like stick around to get to know them, right? Like, you correct them and you move on. You're very graceful about how you deal with people in your life, especially people who may not be doing you the best or may not be treating you the best. And we've got Mina Bird, intelligent, chatty, and popular. Intelligent and popular stick out the most there. You come off as someone that people really, really want to get to know. Chatty also makes me feel like you're probably someone who's actually very good at talking to people, despite the fact that and you would have to be if you're someone who's open about your journey, especially if you're someone who's open about your journey like online or anything like that. Like, people, despite the fact that it can be difficult to get to know you, I don't think that you make it difficult for people to get to know you. I think you're just a very easy person to idealize. So you have to deal with people trying to make you into something that you're not rather often. And we've got the Otter, cute, well-liked, popular, clever, and fast thinker. Fast thinker actually sticks out the most to me there, and it matches patient somehow. Again, I get almost diplomatic. Like, you're someone who's very, very good at spinning a bad situation on its head and making a bad situation into something better, basically. Like, turning an awkward situation where someone has been actively misunderstanding you into a situation where that's just funny, haha, like they don't have to feel awkward and you don't have to feel awkward. Like, you're very clever and you're very good at thinking on your feet. Chatty and adaptable both go hand in hand there too. Like, you're very good at thinking on your feet even when put in really awkward situations and even when put in really, really weird positions. And it does make people curious about you. It does make people curious about how you manage to be so collected. I think even the collective for this reading at the very beginning was that you are calm, cool, and collected. And that is part of what people are very curious about. People have seen you in like really awkward situations, or people have seen you in really uncomfortable situations. And despite that, you're still polite, you're still kind, you still manage to spin it on its head, you still manage to be a good person in the face of like a really awkward situation. And we've got the monarch butterflies, beautiful, healers, and intuitive. Now, beautiful is just a given. These people are highly attached to your energy and very, very romantically interested in you. Like the people who are most curious about you are curious about you in a very, very romantic way. And you're beautiful. You're a very, very attractive person. It's part of how you get so much of the off the bat attention that you get. It's part of what makes you such a showstopper and such a spotlight person, right? You are a very, very magnetic, attractive person. Healer and intuitive stick out here though with the butterfly, specifically in the case of like transformation. I get the sense here that you're someone who is very often transforming because you're someone who works on yourself. That's part of why it's kind of insulting that people would try to attach their own beliefs to you or try to form you into who they would want you to be, because I do get the sense here that you're someone who actively works on yourself, and you're someone who actively prioritizes self-improvement. You know what I mean? So it is rather insulting that people would completely disregard your work on yourself in favor of believing that you are a certain way because they want you to be a certain way. You know what I mean? And we've got the vulture, survivor, intuitive, and friendly. So the second time intuitive is coming out in a row. And how it comes out for me is I get the feeling that you know when people are not so great to you. Like you can sense when people are gossiping about you. You can sense when people are not being the kindest to you behind your back, or not being the kindest about you behind your back. You are really good at reading people, that kind of thing, right? And people are curious as to how you manage to. It helps you control situations. It helps you negate really awkward situations too. People are very curious as to where that intuition comes from, how you manage to be so good at reading people, how you manage to be so good in these situations where people are showing true colors that no one else expected, but you were on the ball about it. You were prepared for it. All right, sorry about that, guys. My phone was dying. I needed to charge my phone. We were so close to no interruptions in this video too. I'll get it one day, I promise. Anyway, these are my quote cards. And so we are going to see what the people who are most curious about you would tell you if they were ever to speak to you. The people who are most curious about you, again, are people who like kind of feel like they're on the outside looking in. These are people who have known about you for a long time, but not people who have ever really been in contact with you. Like, what I'm getting is social media more than anything else, but it could be something like neighbors, like your neighbors who have just kind of been there for anywhere from months to years, right? And you've never really interacted with them, but they've always been really curious about you. Like, I'm getting the energy of people who know of you rather than really know you, know you. You know what I mean? So, strangers to you, probably. What would these people say if they were to talk to you? What would the people most curious about you ask you if they were to speak to you? I'm getting I want nothing. I just want the emptiness to mean something. Ernest Hemingway. Specifically, I want nothing. These people would tell you that they don't want anything from you. Um, Again, I do get the feeling that you have had to deal with like people idealizing you in the past. And the people who are most curious about you right now have, I think, kind of seen that. You've likely been open about this kind of thing, or it's happened really openly. The people who are most curious about you are aware of the fact that you've been through these situations where it does kind of feel like people are kind of using you to fill a certain need in their own life or in their own person, you know what I mean? And the people who are most curious about you would try to, if they really could tell you anything, they would immediately let you know that they don't want anything from you. Like, they really just want to get to know you. They don't want you to be any specific thing. They want you to be yourself. They really like who you are, and they've been watching you for a long time. But lo, how does one define survival? Pleiades, hold on, I have to protest. Did you think I would choose to live without you? Iphigenia among the Tarians and Carson. Yeah, there you have secret admirers who are very, very you have secret admirers who are very curious about how to get closer to you. They're trying to figure out the best way to get closer to you. The Ace of Wands will always stick out at the very center of your 5 card spread. Lots of energy of people writing and deleting messages. The people most curious about you, they, if they could say anything to you, they would tell you that they already feel super attached to you. Not in a creepy way. Again, these are people who have likely been around you for a really long time. This might be like a coworker or like a fellow student or something like that, even like people who have been around you for a really long time, but they haven't really bridged that gap and really gotten to know you. So to them it does feel like they have known you for a very long time. Like, if they could tell you anything, they would tell you that they want to be there for you, and they would tell you that they really care about you. There are people who really, really, really want to get to know you in like the best ways possible. And like, not even just like intimately as in like physically, but like intimately as in like very deep spiritual getting to know you. These people have, despite the fact that the curiosity is very broad, I think I mentioned that before, these people don't know you. You know what I mean? So these people don't know you. You know what I mean? So despite the fact that their curiosity for you is really broad, it still runs very, very deep. They still want to get to know you on like a very, very deep level, and they still want you to get to know them on a very, very deep level. There are people, and I am getting people, I am getting more than one person for a lot of you. There are people who just feel like you are a very good match for them. You're a very good pair for them. Manic Pixie Dream Girl, Olivia Gatewood. Manic Pixie Dream Girl says, I am going to save you. Yeah, strong Manic Pixie Dream Girl energy, especially in the beginning when I was talking about how there are people who you might have had issues with people idealizing you and trying to fit you into certain positions that like aren't you. It's what they wanted from you. And there are definitely the people who are most interested in you would acknowledge that. They would acknowledge the fact that like even even from them, right? Like the most self-aware of these people are aware of the fact that like they don't really know you. So on some level they are also idealizing you the way that you've always had these issues with. You still are having these issues with people idealizing you and thinking that they know you, when ultimately they still are really on the outside looking in. These people would acknowledge that. The people most curious about you would acknowledge that. And I I get the feeling that they want to know more about it. Again, there's this feeling that you're very closed off, especially with the hangman here. You're very, very closed off, despite the fact that you are someone of great interest. And there are a lot of people who would ask you more about what you've been through. Like, there are people who would ask you more about the sort of things that like about the sort of gossip that surrounds you, basically. There are people who are very curious about the kind of gossip that surrounds who you are as a person. They want to know who you are underneath all the gossip. Never regret thy fall, O Icarus of the burning flight, for the greatest tragedy of them all is never to feel the burning light. Icarus, Oscar Wilde. Yeah, they see you as someone very bright. These people see you as someone very bright. And more than very bright, I get the feeling that the people most curious about you right now, they're trying to figure out how, they're curious about how to support you. There is this feeling that you are maybe going through something right now. And there are people who really do want to support you through that. Expect some kind of, there's so much messaging energy here. Do expect some kind of notification. Do expect some kind of messaging and communication to come in, especially if you've been in a stage where you've been kind of in a hermit mode. Do expect over the next, I'm right outside of the holiday season, like literally right outside of the holiday season. So this reading is timeless, but anywhere within the next month. We're talking anywhere within the next month coming up. Expect some kind of messaging from people, some kind of confirmation that people have like really been thinking about you and people really, really want to get to know you. There are definitely new people who are coming into your life if you let them. And these people, they they're curious about how to support you. They're curious about how the best way to give you what you need is. They're curious about what you need. These are people who really do want to be there for you and really do want a reciprocal relationship. And they would tell you that if they ever got the courage to, if they when they get the courage to approach you, if they could, they would tell you that they really want to support you and they really want to be the kind of people that you really deserved all this time, right? There's a reason why people idealize you so much. Like, you're a great person and a great partner. It's a shame that you've had to go through these situations where people try to make you into something that you're not. And there are a lot of people who would tell you that you don't have to deal with these kinds of people, that there are tons of people who love you exactly the way that you are. All right, loves, that is what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it was fun. I will see you next time. Bye.